We do have another state to call. Not a big surprise here, Vermont. Joe Biden will win the state of Vermont, and it's 3 electoral votes. Only 5% of the expected vote-ins, but we can project that Joe Biden will win there handily. 8 p.m. in the East, polls have just closed in 16 more states, and we have more results. In the state of New Jersey, Joe Biden will win the state of New Jersey. Christie, I guess that's not a surprise.
Yeah, I'm going to fall off my chair. I can't believe it. Are you going to tell me Cory Booker won next? I'm really going to pass
We
out.
will check that. Another projection also, state of Massachusetts, Joe Biden will win the state of Massachusetts right there, and it's 11 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win the state of Maryland, and it's 10 electoral votes. A pickup for Donald Trump in the state of Oklahoma. Of course, he won that last time around. 7 electoral votes at play, and Donald Trump will win those. Joe Biden will win his home state of Delaware, and it's 3 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win the District of Columbia, and it's 3 electoral votes. But let's take a look down in the map now and see what we show. Oklahoma and Kentucky for President Trump, Vermont, and those states up in the Northeast, Massachusetts, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey for Joe Biden right now. Still early in the night, 6 states to 2, 44 electoral votes to 15. Let's take a deeper dive now at the state of Ohio in the middle of the country. 28% of the expected vote is in, and right now, at least, Tom Yamas, Joe Biden has a lead.
Yeah, and actually, there's some good news for Joe Biden out of Ohio. The Biden campaign didn't really contest Ohio, and they made some last-minute trips there, and here's why they have reasons to be happy. In counties like Wood that went for Barack Obama, then switched over to President Trump, you can see Joe Biden is on top. 55% of the vote in, but you can see he's overperforming from Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. Another one of those counties that President Trump was able to swing, Trumbull County. You can see Joe Biden again on top. He's up almost 10 points there as well. But, you know, Ohio's all about the 3 C's. And, George, I know you know this. Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. We don't have information for Cincinnati yet, but in Columbus and in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Joe Biden is doing really well. They're 74%. He's up almost 10 points from where Hillary Clinton was. These are the areas where Democrats have to really run up the vote. Lake County, which is always a nail-biter, 51 to 47 there. His numbers are really good compared to Hillary Clinton 4 years ago.
Okay, Tom, thanks. We can project another state for Donald Trump right now, West Virginia. West Virginia and its 5 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. Only 10% of the expected vote in it, but that is a clear win tonight for Donald Trump. So let's take another look at the board. Right now you see Joe Biden has 44 electoral votes. Donald Trump has 42. We have a long way to go on this election night 2020. It's just come in for Donald Trump. Tennessee and its 11 electoral votes will go for Donald Trump. Also, Donald Trump has now picked up the state of Indiana and its electoral vote. Joe Biden will win the state of New York, Donald Trump's former home state. 29 electoral votes there. Not a surprise there in the state of New York. We can project that Joe Biden is going to win the state of Connecticut. No surprise there, of course. Joe Biden will win the state of Connecticut. You see him filling in the blue up there in the Northeast. We can now project that Joe Biden is going to win the state of Colorado, and it's 9 electoral votes. Matt Gutman is there in Denver, Colorado. Matt, what do you make of it?
Hey, George, not a very big surprise here. Democratic candidates have won the past 3 elections here in Colorado. In the Senate, it's been 4 of 5, and not very unusual. This is something that has been forecast in the polls all along. I want to give you a sense of where we are. This is the polling station here in Denver, and what you're looking at looks like watching the paint dry. It looks boring, but all of these people are working within the system to count the ballots. It's incredible, the tenderness with which they are caring for each ballot. A lot of talk tonight about whether or not the elections are rigged, whether or not there has been fraud. I can give you a sense that here it is working like a well-oiled machine. George.
They know how to count votes by mail in Colorado. I've done it for a long time, Matt. Thanks very much. 2 more states now for President Trump. Donald Trump will win the state of Alabama. 10% of the vote in. Of course, that is a strong Republican state. Big Senate race there as well. Republicans hoping to pick up a Senate seat there. Tommy Tuberville over Doug Jones. We don't have a projection on that yet, but we can say that Donald Trump will also win the state of North Dakota tonight. So he's picked up 2 more states there for the president. We see 89 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 63 for Donald Trump right now. We can project now the state of South Carolina is going to go to Donald Trump. South Carolina, strong red state. Donald Trump won it 4 years ago. He is going to win it again tonight. Janae Norman is in South Carolina.
Yeah, hey, George, we expected this. This is a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat for president since 1976. President Trump's support has remained steady, and exit polls showing that the president approval rating is about 55%. But one thing that we're watching big here is, of course, the Senate race here. It is a fierce battle, and Republicans are on defense. Few places is that more true than here in South Carolina. Think about this. Lindsey Graham, he is a household name, a 17-year incumbent in a Republican stronghold. He was expected to easily win re-election a few months ago, but now he is in the fight of his political life. He has been on TV, forced to essentially beg for donations to try to beat Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison at one point raised more than $57 million in just over 3 months. He is one of those candidates that Democrats are hoping can help them flip some red seats blue. So that is what we're watching tonight.
Joe Biden has won 10 states, 93 electoral votes. Donald Trump has won 12 states, 83 electoral votes. Not a surprise yet. Right now, that is a rerun of the 2016 map. We can add 2 more states right now, though. Joe Biden's going to win the state of New Hampshire, and it's 4 electoral votes. Donald Trump had fought pretty hard there. They thought that was one of those states they might be able to take back in 2020, but it was not to be. Joe Biden will win the state of New Hampshire, and it's 4 electoral votes. But Donald Trump will hold on to Louisiana, and it's 8 electoral votes. No surprise there. Blue state stays blue, red state stays. Right now, we're just getting some results in from the state of Nebraska, and Donald Trump has won not all of the votes yet in the state of Nebraska, but he has won 3 of the 5 votes in the state of Nebraska. That's the overall state vote. Nebraska, one of those states that splits their electoral votes also among congressional districts. Tom Yamas, why don't you explain that?
Yeah, okay, so let's take a look at Nebraska right now and follow along with us because it gets a little complicated. As George mentioned, Nebraska splits its electoral votes. Here is the beautiful state of Nebraska right here. We're going to show you 2 counties right here. This is Sarpy, a conservative county that makes up the 2nd congressional district. Donald Trump should be on top right now, and he's not. He won this county 4 years ago, and that's good news for Joe Biden because just above this is Douglas County, and it's like the numbers are reversed here, George. Hillary Clinton won this 4 years ago. This is Omaha right here, right? And Democrats usually always win this area, even though Trump pulled off the win in the congressional district 4 years ago. It was because of that other county. The numbers are inverted right now. Still very, very close here. To give you an idea of the size of this county, it's essentially like this. It is minuscule. But if the race were to come down, and I don't want to say it, but you know what it is. If it were to come down to 269, whoever won that one county, that tiny little county, Nebraska, those would be the most important Americans right now on the planet.
That turns it into a 270, 268. We also have...
I have something I want to say to them right now.
I can't believe you already have their number.
Hello? Can you hear me there?
You should have their number. That's malpractice, bro.
I have their emails.
Yeah. We do have another state to call right now. The state of Utah is going to go to Donald Trump. Again, not much of a surprise right there. Donald Trump is going to win the state of Utah, and it's 6 electoral votes. Even though that's the home of Mitt Romney, who, of course, is the only Republican senator who voted to convict Donald Trump in the impeachment trial. We have another call to make, another projection to make in the state of Kansas. Donald Trump is going to win the state of Kansas. Again, that's a strong red state, has always been. 6 electoral votes. He won by 21 points back in 2016. Donald Trump will win again. We can project now that Donald Trump, as you see up there, has won the state of Wyoming, and it's 3 electoral votes. Solid Republican state, no surprise there. Now project 3 more states for Joe Biden in the West. California, 55 electoral votes. Won by Hillary Clinton by 30 points back in 2016. Joe Biden will win its 55 electoral votes in 2020. He will also win the 7 electoral votes in the state of Oregon, and he will win the state of Washington as well. And it's 12 electoral votes. You see that entire Pacific coast. No surprise there. It is going to go to Joe Biden. So right now at this hour, Joe Biden has 187 electoral votes. Donald Trump has 114. Again, right now it is a complete repeat of the 2016 map. All the big battleground states. New Mexico is going to go to Joe Biden, state of New Mexico, and it's 5 electoral votes. Hillary Clinton won it by 8 points in 2016. Joe Biden will win it tonight. And the state of Idaho, it's 4 electoral votes. No surprise. They're going to go to Donald Trump. He won the state by 32 points in 2016. We are now projecting that Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio. Donald Trump will win the state of Ohio tonight. It's 18 electoral votes, go to Donald Trump. He won it 4 years ago. He will win it again tonight. Chris Christie, I guess that's not a surprise, but still an important win.
really important because there was no way for the president to win without Ohio. And as we know, no Republican president has ever been elected without Ohio. So, you know, when you talk about a must-win state, when you got that much history behind it, it's a must-win state. So he pulled it off. It took a little longer than we all thought, but he pulled that one off, and it allows him to continue in the game.
Another state to project, and it is the state of Virginia. It is going to Joe Biden. It's 13 electoral votes. Again, not a surprise, but now it's been officially projected by ABC News. Joe Biden will win the state of Virginia. The blue states are filling in blue. The red states are filling. We are calling two more states, projecting two more states for Donald Trump. First one is the state of Iowa. The state of Iowa and its 6 electoral votes are going to go to Donald Trump. Also, the state of Florida and its 29 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. So again, the red states are filling in red. Blue states are filling in blue. John Carr, I want to bring you in on something else right now. We have not seen President Trump speak last night, but we've now gotten the first tweet. We're not going to show it right now, but it was something that we were prepared for. Joe Biden, we can project, is going to win the state of Rhode Island. Again, that's not a surprise right there. The blue map is filling in for Joe Biden. The red map is filling in for Donald Trump. Projection now for Donald Trump, it is the state of Texas, turning to be more of a battleground than people expected this year, but Donald Trump will win again. 38 electoral votes in the state of Texas. Matthew Dowd, it was a battle for a while. Democrats had their hopes up, particularly after they saw that vote, that early vote, come in ahead of 2016 votes, but Donald Trump able to pull it out.
Yeah, to me, the fascinating thing about the map as it unfolds tonight, George, and Texas is representative of it, and Arizona is too. Two reliably solid red states are moving in the opposite direction. At the same time, simultaneously, places like Florida that were swing states are moving away from the Democrats. So you have this country now, the map, the electoral map is refashioning itself now, where you no longer have solid red states in certain places and winnable or solid blue states. So the map is shifting, and Texas is one of those. It's taking time. It's probably not going to catch up for another year or two, but soon it's going to be a state that is heavily competitive, just like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Matthew Dowd, thanks very much. I think this is the first time in a presidential election that I've covered where I'm actually projecting a single congressional district and that it may matter. This is in the state of Nebraska. We've now projected that Donald Trump will win the first congressional district in the state of Nebraska, but Joe Biden will win the second congressional district in the state of Nebraska, picking up one electoral vote in that red state. Nate Silver, explain to everybody why this is important.
So this is very important because if Joe Biden wins Arizona but loses Pennsylvania, he'd be at 269 electoral votes. He needs one more to break the tie, and that is one electoral vote. So if you look at our map here, showing what ABC News has called so far, before we projected Nebraska 2, we had Biden with a 69% chance of winning. If you add that to Biden's tally, he goes up by quite a bit here. It's going to recalculate for a second. But he goes up to 84%. It means that Arizona now,
for one congressional district, that is a pretty significant increase.
Because it's that plus Arizona. I mean, maybe Biden's easiest path right now, he is ahead in Arizona. There's some question about how much more Election Day vote there is to be counted. But Arizona, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, then he doesn't have to worry about Pennsylvania. And that gives him a lot more options. And so those two together, we have not called Arizona yet, but Arizona plus Nebraska.
That's the simplest way to explain it right there. Arizona plus Nebraska means you can sacrifice Pennsylvania and still have a path to 270.
Exactly.
We have another state to now project for Joe Biden. It is going to be the state of Minnesota for Joe Biden. Joe Biden will win the state of Minnesota, and it's 10 electoral votes. It's good timing there. Picking up on what Nate was just saying, I want to bring this to John Carl. We know that President Trump had some hope in Minnesota. He spent a fair amount of time there, spent a fair amount of money there, because he wanted an insurance policy against a loss in Wisconsin or Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's not to be tonight. You combine that with Nebraska, and we're getting a much clearer picture of what each side has to do in these final hours.
Absolutely. I mean, he went there in the last week. He barely lost. Minnesota was the closest state that he could have flipped, and it's one of those blue wall states that he didn't get that he thought he had a chance. So now, you know, you're looking at a situation where he really has to pick off at least Pennsylvania and maybe Pennsylvania plus Michigan or Wisconsin, depending on what happens in Arizona.
Right, and Chris Christie, this goes back to something you were saying before. It's putting even more focus on that state of Pennsylvania pretty much now. If Joe Biden, assuming Rahm is right about Arizona, if Joe Biden wins the state of Pennsylvania, he's going to win this election.
Yes, the Rahm meter projection makes Pennsylvania. But listen, you and I have been talking about this since July. I have consistently thought that whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to be the next president of the United States. And I think it's shaping up that way. Now, you know, I do think that there's continued encouragement for the president in Wisconsin. And I think he is going to win. I'm going to have the Christie meter. I think he's going to win North Carolina to match up with you on your Arizona prediction and make myself +4. So you're looking at really Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan that I think are still the ones that we have to watch very carefully.
And we're still waiting for Arizona, waiting for Nevada.
And by the way, George, one other thing. I always like to pick out who the biggest loser of the night is. And so far, I think it's Mike Bloomberg. This is a guy who, decided to get into this race, thought he was going to be a factor, spent a fortune, was a blip in the Democratic primary.
Talk about driving out of your lane to hit the guy.
And now he spends $100 million in Florida. And, you know, Trump's margin is bigger than it was before. So I think anybody who's looking for spare change, go to Mike Bloomberg. He's apparently giving it away for nothing.
Because what is it about Florida? Democrats always seem to be lured down to that state, and it never comes through at the end.
You know, I think the changing demographics, we expect it to look more like what we're seeing in Arizona and Florida. I mean, Arizona and Texas, and it's just not trending that way when you think about black and brown voters, in part because of the heavy conservative vote among Latino voters down there, the growing number of conservative seniors who are moving down and retiring there. I know Biden got a lot more of those than before, but we're just not seeing the trend lines demographically shifting with the party the way we're seeing in places like Arizona and Texas, unfortunately.
Victor Akendo, you're in Miami.
That's right, George. And one Democratic data analyst that we spoke with called what happened in Miami-Dade County a total collapse. And there are some other problems here for Democrats. There's 2 Democratic House seats that were considered safe in this election. Well, not so much anymore. And one of those belonged to Donna Shalala. And speaking to all the money spent on those television ads, well, they were brutal, just relentless. President Trump hammering Joe Biden, labeling him as a socialist. Well, Republicans only spent, according to the latest numbers that we've seen, about $80 million on those ads, while Democrats spent closer to $130 million, and those ads for Republicans really seem to resonate with those Latino groups, not just Cuban Americans, but it's clear that they also reach the Nicaraguans, the Venezuelans, the Colombians. All of those groups seem to turn out for President Trump in this election, not the way the Democrats wanted this one to go. George?
Somewhat different from the way it's playing in Arizona. But, David Muir, what do we see in the exit polls about the role race is playing in this election?
Well, if you look at, let's take a look at the question of Minnesota racism in the U.S. It's interesting if you look here, and given the George Floyd and so much coverage of it this year and this, much needed conversation in this country, only 8% of the people, according to the exit polls, said that that is the most important problem. Of course, we are dealing with the pandemic and the economy, and so there are a lot of things that have also shared the news cycle these last few months. 61%, though, who thought that racism is the most important problem to address went with Joe Biden. If you look in Minnesota, the job performance, he was hoping to pick up this state, but 52% said they disapproved of Donald Trump. And again, that whole debate over containing COVID or rebuilding the economy, this was also a state where well more than 50% said we have to get a handle on the pandemic first.
Lindsay Davis?
I think that what remains to be seen, with the exception of Minnesota, which we just projected, but how the racial politics are playing out, in particular in these flashpoint areas where we saw the majority of the protests and the unrest over the summer during this so-called racial reckoning in areas like Philadelphia, where we just had the police shooting of Walter Wallace, in Minneapolis with George Floyd, in Atlanta with Rayshard Brooks, and also in Kenosha with Jacob Blake. How is that all going to shake out? 3 of those 4 states still outstanding.
Matthew Dowd, this may have been the subtext of campaigns now going back to, of course, Barack Obama's first win in 2008. We're seeing it play out in different ways every 4 years.
Yeah, and as I said, it's a shifting electoral college, and I'm very interested in seeing what the national popular vote margin ends up, because that's going to tell me a lot. My guess is what we're seeing across all the states, with the huge exception of Florida, which I think at some point the Democrats have to just say, we're never doing that again. That's it. We're done. We'll concentrate somewhere else. Is there's about a 3 or 4 point shift towards Biden in every place, percentage-wise, in every place but Florida, Maine, New Hampshire, Arizona, Minnesota, all of Texas, all of these places you're having a 3 or 4 point shift. And my guess is that is exactly what the national popular vote ends up, that there was a 3 or 4 point shift, and it gave Joe Biden we'll see, a bare win in the Electoral College, and that's why everything broke the way it did.
Thank you, Matt. Byron Pitts, I know you want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, George, this issue of how the George Floyd dynamic play, I'm thinking of the famous New York Broadway play, A Bronx Tale. Would you rather be loved or feared, right? What we saw with President Obama, there was so much pride and love for his candidacy in 2008. Black voters came out in large numbers. We're not seeing that this time in the South. We were at an evangelical Christian church on Sunday. Good and decent people. But when we talked about the issue of the racial divide, almost silence. They didn't have much to say about that conversation. They didn't see it the way that many people of color, many liberals have seen it around the country. And so I think for all the progress we think we're making as a nation, certainly for all the progress people pride themselves on the South, again, this notion of a new South, I think what we're seeing tonight, it would appear, when it comes to race, oftentimes in this nation, blacks and whites can receive the same information, but see it differently.
That's the story of the country. We've seen so many times. We are divided in so many different ways. We have some information now coming in from the state of Nevada. The first votes are coming in from the state of Nevada. So much early vote in that state. It was well over 90% voted before Election Day, and now 74% of it has been counted.
That's right. That's what we have so far. George, in Clark County, this is where 3/4 of the vote's going to come for the entire state. This, of course, is Las Vegas. Joe Biden with a comfortable lead right there. He's up 10 points, overperforming from 4 years ago. A quarter of the vote still out. You can't talk about Nevada without talking about COVID, George. This state was ravaged by COVID, not only physically, but also economically. At one point, it had the highest unemployment rate in the entire country. 70% of the state depends on tourism. Washoe County, this is Reno. This is where President Trump has to keep the margins close, and right now, they're not that close. So the trend right now, Joe Biden on top in Nevada, and from what we're seeing with the data, a quarter of the vote still out. It looks like it could possibly be good news for Democrats.
Okay, Tom Yamas, thanks very much. Okay, we have some more electoral votes to project right now. They come from the state of Maine, and 2 more of Maine's electoral votes will now go to Joe Biden. It has 4 electoral votes in total, and Joe Biden has now won those electoral votes in the state of Maine. Again, not a surprise there, although one of the congressional districts in Maine was more heavily Republican, but Joe Biden winning that state of Maine handily.
ABC News is now projecting Joe Biden will win the key state of Michigan. That state has gone to Democrats in the past, but it famously went to Donald Trump 4 years ago. Again, ABC News now projecting Joe Biden has won the state of Michigan. And ABC News Deputy Political Director Mary Alice Parks joins us now for a look at what this means. Mary Alice, how big of a win is Michigan for Joe Biden, and what does that do for the map right now?
Yeah, this is huge for Joe Biden, a pretty big blow to the president, really narrowing his possible path to 270. Look, Joe Biden's team had said all day they felt confident about the state, and his numbers were trending up there. Every time more of that mailed-in vote was counted, his numbers went up. You know, this was something we talked about as a possible just reality of the count there in these Midwestern states. For weeks, we knew that a number of these states would not be counting that mail-in vote until Election Day. We knew that that mail-in vote was very likely to skew Democrat, and that's really what we saw. You know, the mail-in vote came from an early absentee vote came from those big Democratic cities, and it was enough to put him over the edge. You know, interesting here is going to be the margin. Right now, if the margin that we're seeing were to hold, it would be pretty hard for there to be a recount challenge, but that margin could narrow again. So I think there's going to be questions about whether the margin could be close enough to a recount. We're not seeing that yet, but there will be questions about the margins, and obviously the president and his team are going to have to respond about how they see their map now.
And the president and his team have said that they already launched a lawsuit into Michigan, saying they haven't been given what they consider to be the proper access to see the vote counts. What do we know about that lawsuit right now?
Not a lot. I haven't seen it. I haven't read it yet. The fact is that it's actually a really transparent process. There were cameras in a lot of the rooms or just outside a lot of the rooms that were doing the count. You could see some of the poll workers counting the ballots through glass windows. You know, I was pretty surprised at how calm, cool, and collected the elected officials there in Michigan were today. They came out, they gave regular press conferences, they gave regular updates. They were very transparent about where they still had mail-in votes to count. And like I said, this was something they had talked about for weeks. They said if it is tight, every single one of those mailed-in ballots could matter. And they were right in the end. And they had committed to making sure that every vote that was legally cast was counted. And right now it's looking like that's exactly what happened.
This is an ABC News election update. Now reporting chief anchor George Stephanopoulos.
Good morning. We have breaking news results from the state of Pennsylvania. Those results are in right now. And based on what we are seeing there, we can say that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is on track to win the state of Pennsylvania, become the 46th president of the United States. Joe Biden will have at least 273 electoral votes. We're still waiting for results from the state of Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia as well, likely to increase his lead even more. But based on what we are seeing now, even though we are not projecting a winner, we can say that Joe Biden is on track to be the next president of the United States of America, the 46th president of the United States. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., somewhat fancy name for a man who likes to call himself the boy from Scranton. His political career began 50 years ago this week, elected to the county council in Newcastle, Delaware. 2 years later, America's youngest senator, elected at 29. He served 3 decades in the Senate, rose to chairman of the Senate Judiciary, Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And there you see the young man who would later become one of the senior senators in the United States. That seemed like it could have been the end of his career. Yet in 2007, he was 2008, tapped by Barack Obama to be his running mate and served 2 terms as vice president of the United States. This is actually his 3rd run for the presidency, 3rd time's the charm for Joe Biden. First ran in 1987. Was forced out after facing charges of plagiarism in 1987. Ran again in 2007. But he was no match in 2007 for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, who, of course, got the nomination, ran as president. This election looked like it was a tough run at first. Joe Biden was the front runner, but then ran into a lot of trouble in Iowa and New Hampshire, 4th and 5th place finishes, before the state of South Carolina saved the candidacy of Joe Biden, backed overwhelmingly by black voters. And the kingmaker in that state, Jim Clyburn, he won the state of South Carolina, immediately moved on to become the nominee as the Democratic Party closed ranks behind him. He is a man who has absorbed much pain and much loss. The death of his wife and daughter just weeks after he was elected to the Senate in 1972. His son, Beau, Attorney General of Delaware, died in the final year of Biden's vice presidency from brain cancer. Biden himself, in 1988, a brain aneurysm that almost killed him. And through all these experiences, he became a man of uncommon empathy, a man of great resilience, a man of simple decency, character traits that he will now bring to the office of the President of the United States. Elected at the age of 77, the oldest man ever elected president, he will occupy the Oval Office starting January 20th.